Welcome to the Chad and Cheese birthday week. That's right. Both birthdays, 1 week. And needless to say, after over 8 years and nearly 1,500 episodes, wow, we deserve a little time by the pool or the beach in my case. But listen, we have a special treat for you this week. Let's call it a Chad and Cheese birthday present for you. That's right. We have a brand spanking new episode of Talent Chasing, a podcast where Moneyball meets Office Space. What the hell does that mean? Well, you got to listen to find out. Enjoy your gift. You're going to love it. So wash out.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talent Chasing. My name is Jasper Spanjaart. I'm a filmmaker and journalist, joined by former military drill sergeant Chad Big Drill Sowash and Brian, aka Frank Johnson, who scouted 2 World Series winning San Francisco Giants teams and played for a whole bunch of three. God's sake, Brian. Is 2 not enough? I was also about to mention that you played for a whole bunch of MLB teams, but then again, it sort of pictures you as a journeyman, which again is true. But hello, you beautiful, young, bald American souls. I'm happy to be in a recording space with both of you once more. How are things, guys?
All good here, man. I am back in Portugal, baby. So
Eurochad.
Eurochad's back. Can't be happier. All the sun, all the beach, all the water, all the beer. Can't beat it. But you just got back from Japan. Talk a little bit about that. That's one hell of a freaking flight, man. Or a series of flights.
A series of flights. So it was from the Netherlands to Indonesia, where we had a friend's wedding, which was beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Then we flew to Japan after that, via China. So I saw pretty much all of Asia in one trip, I feel like. But I spent the week in Tokyo watching baseball, eating far too much sashimi and sushi.
No such thing.
There's no such thing. And beautiful beer too. The Japanese do beer quite excellently, if I may add. And it was just completely captivating. The Tokyo is batshit crazy. It's sort of the craziest city you can ever imagine. It's literally 15 cities sort of bolted into one. Fascinating. If you ever get the chance to get out there, you absolutely must. I've got a whole range of tips and things you need to do whilst you're there. Avoid the Shibuya crossing, but go to some far less known museums. It's a much better way to spend your time there. But I remember vividly because the day I flew out was the day of the NFL draft. So it was my first ever experience, following the NFL draft literally from afar. 35,000 feet up in the air, somewhere above the South China Sea. And I love the draft. I always make a note of staying up at least for the first and second round on those days. But it was weird because I had to follow it, just shitty Wi-Fi on the plane, trying to get updates from you guys and from Twitter that wouldn't load. So yeah, it was interesting, say.
It was interesting, and we talked about it last show when you were, out and about doing your Asian Jasper trip. But the pre-draft conversation about Shedeur Sanders was fascinating.
Yeah.
Amazingly, the post-draft story of Shedeur Sanders is even more interesting. And what's fascinating for me, and we've talked about this before, there's about 8 different storylines or 8 different opinions you can have on the Shedeur Sanders situation, and you would be accurate. That's what makes it intriguing, is that there's a lot of things at play here. You got you got talent on the field, which you would think would be primo, but it's part of the mix. You got personality of the player. You got interviews that were done. The Giants say one thing, other teams say another. You have you don't have 32 teams needing quarterback. You have like 4 or 5, and then so that comes into play. So it's a shrinked market. So it's not a normal market there. For quarterback, you have the helicopter parent. We have the whatever round you think he deserves. You have, in evaluating his talent, you have, he doesn't throw on time. He's doing this, doing that. The bottom line is he carried a program from nothing to national relevance, NFL teams, to where they're facing huge TV audiences every week. And then some would say, well, it's because of dad. People don't, there was a report. I don't know how true it is. It doesn't sound true, but whatever. One of the other reports was that Brian Dable was concerned that Deion Sanders would be in line for his job if things didn't go well, or whatever it may be. So fascinating. All these
Deion's
lines.
The last guy he's got to worry about, for God's sakes. He should just worry about himself. He should just worry about himself, because Brian Dable, to be quite frank, I don't know how in the hell he's still in that position. But anyway.
But before, because what I was about to mention is, we talked about Shedeur Sanders at length before, I jetted off to Asia. And I was just dumbfounded by his free fall. Because he doesn't go in the first round. So for those, non-NFL fans out there, first round, 32 teams. So each team gets to take their player, their favorite player of their draft, essentially. I was 100% expecting, Shedeur Sanders to go in the first round. Just based on talent, just based on what he did at Colorado, based on what he did at Jackson before that, the type of character he is. We've talked, Brian's talked at nauseum about, quarterbacks and, what makes a good quarterback, the fact that you need to be a little bit confident, and we'll delve into that later. But, this is a quarterback who completed 70% of his passes in college, like 134 touchdowns.
With not a great O-line.
227 interceptions.
0 O-line.
But fill me in, guys, because I wasn't there. What happened just then? What was it like following this sort of process? Because this is the biggest free fall of talent that I think I've ever seen. And the worst part of it is, and I don't think people understand this fully if you're not an NFL fan, it's there for everyone to see. Everyone gets to enjoy, and this is Schadenfreude at a global stage, guys. Like this guy's free fall was depicted to the entire world. But what was it like following the draft from your guys' perspective? Because I wasn't able to watch. I was just reading tweets and messaging you guys. But tell me, what was it like?
Over 80% of you watching right now, you watch over and over. We know you do, but you haven't liked and you haven't subscribed. Let's do that. Let's do that now. For me, it was as much of his slide as seeing the teams take other quarterbacks and who they took.
Yeah.
Before that, Tyler Show. He's older. I totally get that. They wanted a little bit more mature guy, but to me, he just didn't seem like he should have gone even close to that high. Even Jackson Dart, for goodness sakes. Then you got Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel was taken by Cleveland before they took Shedeur Sanders. Yeah. And it's like, how in the hell, don't get me wrong, Big Ten quarterback, played at Oregon, great team. They've got an NFL kind of like pro set offense. Totally get that, right? Totally get that. But he does not have the physical attributes. He does not have the physical attributes that Shedeur Sanders does. So to be able to watch this for me, and again, as we were talking about it coming out of it, it was like, how can they not take this guy in the first round? Of course they will. Yes, he had some interview hiccups. Maybe he didn't want to go to those teams. Whom the hell ever wants to go to the Giants, especially right now? But at the end of the day, a lot of these things that Brian was talking about have actually come out and have made me think a little bit deeper about, you take a look at personality and how that actually goes to marketing, right? And the Cleveland Browns are getting one hell of a personality marketing bump from a 5th round draft pick. That's from their 5th round draft pick, not from their quarterback that they took earlier, right? Number one. And then the second biggest one for me is that it's blending that personality and then the helicopter parent. Deion was doing interviews and they were saying, well, what if Shedeur picks a team that you don't want him to? And he's like, excuse me? Pretty much he's controlling everything. And I totally get it. Deion is for all intents and purposes, he is an expert in the space compared to many other people. Right, he's gone through the draft. He's been an NFL player. He's been on both sides. He's been a coach, right? He's been a commentator. He's done all of these things. So therefore, he really feels, and he brings the chops of being an expert, but it's also the ability to have hubris. And that's something that Deion's never had. So you've got one of those things where it's like, can my team not only take on a Shedeur Sanders, who also is going to have that kind of personality, perspectively, and also hubris? But two, are we going to have Deion in the fucking locker room too? So those are two big things for me, especially after the fallout. Wow, just big wow.
Yeah, completely fair. I think Deion has not gotten the criticism that he deserves post-draft. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about it in our pre-draft because I don't think we realize how possibly this could play out.
Yeah.
And now that it's played out, I think you're exactly right. For any of us that have coached at the high school level or the middle school level and realize that parents are heavily involved, here you have, just like you described, Chad, a parent who, you're right, as far as his knowledge base is concerned, it's all on one level. He's dominated since he was, a long time. And he dominated the draft. He dominated after the draft. He dominated everything in football. Mm-hmm. And so as a coach, now all of a sudden he's done really well as a coach in two different spots. And so he deserves that acclaim. But sometimes a criticism of former professional athletes, is that when you get back into the real world, it's hard to have that humility. Like in coaching, mm-hmm. You don't remember when you stunk as an 8-year-old and you struck out 4 times, right? Yeah. You don't remember as a 12-year-old you had a hard time finding your release point when you're pitching. When you got shellacked one game or whatever, maybe, or you threw a bunch of interceptions. You forget those times. And so as a star, that's why many star players don't turn into good coaches, because you have to have the humility, because you need to coach in different ways for different people. The star probably needs a little more cerebral approach, keeping their confidence up, boom, 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 boom. The player who lacks the star skills, they need to make sure that they are fundamentally sound and thinking about A, B, and C that's different from the star. So that's why catchers are such good managers in baseball. That's why Dan Campbell with the Lions, he was a bench player for the most part. He got hurt a bunch of times in his career. A great way to be able to understand each person on your roster. Deion didn't have that, and therefore he made big mistakes as a parent / coach / Deion and Shiloh's agent. That he oversold his product, not because they're not any good, but because he didn't gauge the market well enough.
Hospitality is the heart of our society. It brings people together to share great food, drinks, and experiences. But successfully managing a restaurant or hotel is no easy feat. That's where Harry comes in. Harry is the frontline employee experience platform that helps you build, manage, and engage great teams. With Harry, managers can easily find and hire top talent, manage timekeeping, and communicate with employees at any time from any place. Candidates and team members can quickly and efficiently apply for jobs, swap shifts, and access important information entirely from their mobile devices. And Harry's robust employee engagement tools make team members feel more connected than ever. With Harry, as an owner or operator, you get a bird's eye view of your business, from turnover cost, labor cost, employee sentiment, compliance risk, and team performance. Run your business better by understanding the power of your people. Because when your team is the heart of your business, Harry is the heartbeat. See how it transforms your business.
But do we feel like, this level of scrutiny, though, I feel like it's unparalleled. I've never seen, a young kid in both Shiloh Sanders and Shedeur Sanders, both of his sons, who've been scrutinized just to a point where I go, sure, but they can't help that that's their dad. And they've looked up to this guy their entire lives. And to give them some credit, they flourished under him. They have flourished at their own level. But at what point does perception of that family overtake, just performance in the way we assess talent? Because, it's a dramatic slight. Sure, I didn't anticipate it. Okay, he's not going in the first round. Surely he's going to go in the second. Okay, surely he's going to go in the third. No, he wasn't taken until the 5th round by a team that, as Chad just said, already took a quarterback earlier in the draft. I don't think I've ever seen that before either. Taking 2 quarterbacks in the first 5 rounds. But beyond that, it feels unfair. It feels unfair. It feels like these kids, if they had a different back name, different last name, they would have been drafted in the first round. I think that applies, honestly, to both of his kids.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to make a correlation to kind of like the corporate world, I remember working with tons of Fortune 500 companies, and they would do college recruiting. So they would go on campus to these big campuses. And this is the first time I ever heard the term helicopter parent. And I was like, what the hell is that? Well, with these kids, and they're young adults, right? Their parents would show up to interviews with them. Their parents would actually start the negotiation for their pay and their salary. Now, these parents have a hell of a lot more experience in all of those areas. Interview, salary negotiation, all those types of things. And there's all these reasons why obviously companies don't want to see that happening. They don't want to see the parent in the office, right? They don't want to get notes from the parent. They don't want to get calls from the parent, right? You're an adult now. You got to take this thing over. So you see this translate, and I've seen many times and heard many times companies say, amazing candidate, what they did in the classroom, what they could articulate in the interview, but we just can't have the prospective distraction of a parent feeling like they're sitting down beside them in the office, right? And so you'll see this on the corporate side too. And that's where, the first time I heard helicopter parent. So I can see this, especially when you're talking about Deion.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Deion, this guy's not just metaphorically sitting there. He's literally sitting there, and he has access to every fucking TV channel, any broadcaster that he wants, whenever he wants. And he can bring down a head coach, which, you're talking about Brian Dable earlier. He's going to bring himself down. But can you imagine if Shedeur did not get playing time like he wanted, how prospectively Deion could come down on that entire organization?
Yeah, or if Shedeur goes to the Giants, he plays great. The team loses anyway. Mm-hmm. Deion's going to be talked about for months and months and months. But for me, I would go to let's talk about the other pieces as well, because the helicopter parent's a great point. But I think also you have to come into play is race, right? The profile of a black quarterback. Number one, right? We didn't have black quarterbacks for forever until recently, relatively recently. So there's that. The perception of glitz and glamour, the perception of arrogance from a black quarterback, right? So in the United States, we have a racial history here. And regardless of whether some people want to feel like some things have to do with race and some things don't, take that argument out. Race involves everything. It touches everything. It may not be the only thing involved. And I think that's a lot of times perception gets wrong, is that just because race involved doesn't mean nothing else counts. Doesn't mean nothing else influenced it. That's what, again, Shedeur's situation is so interesting because all these things come into play. But when we had Ryan Leaf come to the draft, number one pick, Peyton Manning, arrogance all over the place with both those guys in different ways. There was never a talk of making an example of. There's never a talk of a slide. And sure enough, unfortunately, Ryan Leaf had some other issues that came up to bat. Johnny Manziel. Now, the only time we've seen this happen with I don't want to say the only time, but we saw this slide happen with Aaron Rodgers, a white quarterback. But Aaron Rodgers wasn't we can't look at his pro career and look back in college and say, oh, well, he came out as the number one prospect and came out as the guy, as the man. Same with Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't play a whole lot in Michigan. He shared time in Michigan, so he wasn't Tom Brady at the time of the draft. So even though he slid further than Shedeur, it's not the same situation. Nor is Aaron Rodgers the same situation. So we've never seen a white quarterback being made an example of, right? If we can say that, because I think that's pretty obvious that he was made an example of, regardless of what reason it was that we agree or disagree on. He was made an example of, and it's going to be fascinating to see him go forward. And it is a good, clean slate for him to be able to really show what he can do. And plenty of, who cares what team it's from?
No, but I think you're making a fantastic point, Brian. And just to pivot back on some of the names that you've just mentioned, because I did get some Aaron Rodgers vibes. Like there was some Aaron Rodgers, when he was initially in the draft process, there was that whole ordeal of, okay, is this guy too confident? Is he too cocky? Same sort of thing, right? Johnny Manziel, same sort of thing. But we mustn't forget, both of them, Rodgers, Manziel, were first-round picks. They were first-round NFL draft picks.
Yes.
Shedeur Sanders is a fifth-round draft pick. That means 4 times in a row, every team that possible passed on this guy. 4 times. And I feel like this, again, it's incomprehensible to me. Sure, you've got the name affiliation, and but you must be, as a team, you must be so insecure about your own livelihood to not pick this guy in the first 4 rounds. Like, if you let the fear of, Deion Sanders might come in, his dad might come in and he might take over my job, blah, 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 you must be horribly insecure in your own job. Because if you're not confident enough to pick that guy in the first 4 rounds, in the first 3 rounds, or the first 2 rounds, what are we doing? Honestly, what are we doing?
What the hell were the Browns thinking, though? They took a quarterback first, and then they traded up to get Shedeur.
I don't get it.
Right.
I don't get it.
Well, I think – I'm sorry, were you finished, Jasper? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go on.
So I think, going on your point, Jasper, of the organizations, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I think if you look at the 4 or 5 teams that really need quarterbacks, or Pittsburgh and Cleveland, let's just focus on those two. I think this was something that was sent down from above, because you just look at the mannerisms of Andrew Berry in his press conference, and look at the head coach sit next to him in the press conference. Everybody's bending over backwards to make it seem like, Shedeur is, the one thing Andrew Berry said was he was oversold, right? So they're doing everything they can to make it seem like, this wasn't done on purpose. This wasn't done on purpose. And it's fascinating, the comments out of the New York Giants, the zero comments from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who needed a quarterback even more than Cleveland. How on earth does the Pittsburgh Steelers not draft a quarterback in this draft? It's ridiculous. And with a guy like Charlotte, and with Mike Tomlin there as their head coach, I mean, that speaks to me again. Your boss told you not to do it. It doesn't matter if you agree with him. You have to do what your boss tells you. And so you just stay out of the limelight, because you can't change what your boss is saying. The bosses of those 2 organizations told them, you cannot take this guy for whatever reason you want to point out. Yeah. It's hugely got to be racial, number one. And I hate to say that, but it's got to be part of it. The social media following has got to be a huge part of it. And I'm sure they're reading the same reports we all did. He doesn't throw on time. They're worried about a Johnny Manziel coming in. They're worried about a Ryan Leaf, so they don't want to make a mistake. I get that part, but it's just, when you look at the tape, no one's playing the game like he's playing, except for Cam Ward with Miami. He was great. And I hate the argument that says, well, he doesn't run. Sanders doesn't run like Cam Ward. Who cares? Dan Marino didn't run well, right? A lot of guys don't run well. Who can operate in the quarterback position? Cerebrally, Shedeur is right there with Cam Ward, and maybe better. It's hard to read that kind of stuff, but cerebrally, the mental stuff, Shedeur is in a class by himself. I think that's going to show up.
No, easily. But again, you've alluded to the fact that, only 5 or 6 teams needed a quarterback. But honestly, when has the draft ever become about need? I get that when you need a quarterback, you draft a quarterback. But there's teams like the New York Jets, my New York Jets. Okay, great. You sign a guy in free agency. Great. Justin Fields, decent quarterback. Hasn't been a starter for 2 years, but he's good enough. Really? You're not going to take a flyer on Shedeur Sanders in the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th round? Really? Like, honestly, it's just, I can't speak to the level of surprise I felt, because it feels wrong. It just feels wrong. And I think you're absolutely spot on in the fact that race has to be an issue with this. And yeah, Deion Sanders is a personality of its own. We've well documented that even on our podcast, the type of character he is. But at the same time, I didn't expect that type of backlash to happen based on the character he's got. Like, sure, because next year we'll see Archie Manning probably in the draft, right?
Oh, Archie.
He's going to be the first round. I think he's going to be a shoe-in, lock-in for the first overall pick. His uncle played for 4 years. You never know with the Mannings, because the maturity level those guys have, not to mention the NIL money that they're going to be pulling, he might stay longer. He might. If he's not secured of a first-round draft slot, sure. But that's why it's just all the war. And then
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case with the Mannings. The Mannings are smart. They understand that he's got to be ready for the NFL.
Yeah, but who's to say?
He can come out early because he's going to go in the first round. That does not mean that he's ready for the NFL. And if anybody knows, talk a little bit about that, Brian. I think that's one of the things that the Mannings, from my standpoint, I look to see what they do because they know fucking football. If any family knows football, that family knows football. So I think that he will come out when they think he's ready. And now here's also a twist to this, Brian. You got the whole Manning family, right? Who are also big.
Exactly.
Out in the marketing space. And I mean, you got a couple of uncles who have won Super Bowls, right? And you got this quarterback who has this big marketing opportunity. He had the same thing with Deion Sanders, but you're afraid of Deion Sanders, right?
Exactly.
So I think back to your point, is this a race thing? There's got to be some implications to that.
So you posted a new job ad. Now you can sit back and wait for the applications to roll in, right? That's why we built JobPixel. Imagine showing candidates why your company is great with real people, real stories, and real culture. With JobPixel, it's not just another job ad. It's an invitation to something much bigger.
Video gives you a 3 times better response rate. So instead of chasing after candidates, they'll be coming to you.
And with a 34% boost in conversions, candidates aren't just looking, they're applying.
And if you're worried about people clicking away, don't be. Our videos reduce bounce rates by 25%. That means they're watching, they're engaged, and they're interested.
282% more engagement. Yeah, you're gonna need a bigger inbox.
Finding the right candidate is tough, but with JobPixel, it doesn't have to be. Show your company's authentic story, and the candidates will follow.
Let's make recruiting fun again, because honestly, it could use some help.
Do you want to see how JobPixel can save you time and money while achieving your KPIs? Schedule a demo today.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's a great example that proves that point. Again, it's just different. It's just different when a Black person is involved. And regardless of what it exactly was, it's going to be hard for us to decipher. But race always plays a part. We're in the United States. This is our racial history has been denied. Has been trying to get rid of it from our schools, trying to act like it didn't happen, and therefore that means that it continues to linger and linger and linger, and we don't acknowledge it. Just like in a relationship with with your wife, you have a fight, right? And you have a fight, you did something wrong, but you'll never admit it, and you'll never bring it up, and never. Tell me right now if that relationship is going to last forever. Probably not. And if you do it once, it means you're going to do it a couple times. So that's going to be hard to maintain. Same thing that's happened in the United States with our culture. It's always there. White folks deny it ever happens, and they accuse Black folks of always playing the race card. It's just an issue that's there. Again, like we talked about, it doesn't mean it's the only issue that's there. It's an issue that's there. But with the Manning family, it's fascinating because you look at Arch Manning. He didn't play last year. And so that's a little close to 2 years where this kid's going to not be able to play a game, to your point, Chad, in that if I'm Peyton Manning, if I'm Eli Manning, if I'm Archie Manning Sr., I'm thinking nowadays you got to be ready when you get there, especially if he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. You got to have experience to play this game, especially all these guys who have played 5 and 6 years because of COVID, an extra year of COVID eligibility. These guys are coming in seasoned and ready to play. If he's only getting 1 year of actual D1 competition, he may not be ready.
Yeah. Well, you take a look at Richardson at Indianapolis.
Great call.
He did not have enough. He should not have come out. Period.
But he can run. He can outrun everybody. He could throw the ball 1,000,000 miles. That doesn't matter at the quarterback
position. Just not short and mid. He has no short and mid game. Everything is long, or he is running.
You got to be able to make the layup. You can't slam dunk on everybody every play, right?
You want me to play that, Jasper?
Go for it. Yeah.
The NFL sent the message, and the message that was sent was, "You are not that guy," or as people like to say, "You are not him." because what I've seen and what many folks have seen year after year after year, if you have that type of talent, regardless of off the field interviews, guess what? You're going to get picked high because the NFL teams are in the winning business. They're not in the business of allowing elite talent to just continue to fall. It just doesn't happen that way. Do we see guys slip some? Absolutely. We've seen guys have egregious things in their background where they might slip, but ultimately the NFL is in a talent acquisition business. If they feel like a guy can help us win right now, they're not going to sit there and pass over a guy time after time after time. And so when you talk about Shedeur Sanders, that's part of the equation. The other part of the equation is, okay, if this guy's coming in and he's not that guy, if he's going to be maybe a backup quarterbacks are obscure. They're not guys that's in the forefront. And so if you're a team, do you want a guy that's going to come in with all the celebrity, everything that comes with Shedeur Sanders? You have to think that's part of a big part of the reason why a guy like Shedeur Sanders can tumble all the way to the 5th round. This is the league speaking. This is not, we can sit here and pontificate about Shedeur Sanders and why we thought that he should have been drafted higher. But ultimately, at the end of the day, 32 teams out there sent a message that said,
you're just not him.
So I like his one point of that they're in the talent acquisition business. Yep, I get that.
Yeah.
But again, not every team needs us. So we're not talking 32 teams. We're talking 3 or 4 that really need a quarterback talent. And we just saw them not in the talent acquisition business. And as far as how you evaluate it, he's saying that I just disagree that because this. Well, let me pull back a little bit. What I do agree with him, I think, is the social media presence. And this is what we talked about with Tim Tebow. I think that was his strongest point. Because I think with the Tim Tebow situation, we know that the social media piece they don't want because of all that, and then you combine that with Deion Sanders, and that I think was the stew that they were trying to avoid. What's happened, and again, I think we talked about with your 5th round pick, as you mentioned, Chad. I've never seen this much exposure and this much the Cleveland Browns being a focal point from a 5th round draft pick. It wasn't Myles Garrett, your number 1 defensive end, who's the highest paid guy in the NFL. It wasn't Joe Flacco, who had a great season 2 years ago that saved the franchise and took them to the playoffs when your main guy got hurt. It wasn't the owners. It wasn't the GM. It was your 5th round draft pick, not your 3rd round draft pick, Dylan Gabriel, who's a solid player. It was your 5th round pick. And that is, I think, something that Cleveland's going to benefit from that they didn't anticipate.
I mean, it makes for an interesting sort of conundrum, doesn't it? I mean, you just alluded to Tim Tebow, and I think he was very much one of the first players in the NFL to really undergo a level of scrutiny that no one else went through, because he was a talented guy, just a talented quarterback, 1st round draft pick for the Denver Broncos, was traded to the New York Jets where he didn't get to play quarterback at all. Still don't know why, because they needed good quarterback play at that time. And it's just the whole circus around him. That was always the same, right? The way they sort of phrased it, the media phrase was the circus around Tebow. Teams don't want the circus around Tebow. Well, guess what? The NFL is a circus already.
Yes.
It's a circus already. Like, yes, no matter whether you sign Tim Tebow or not, it's going to be a circus no matter what. Journalists are going to be there. They're going to ask different questions, going to ask stupid questions, going to ask right questions. It's always going to happen. But to me, it's just staggering to see this happen over and over again with, you need a talented quarterback. There's absolutely no one that can tell me he's not a talented quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is a talented quarterback. 32 teams should have been in line for him, waiting and hoping and wishing that they could be the one drafting him. Instead, they all said, nope, not our guy, because we don't want the circus around him. And that to me is just, it's staggering that it doesn't feel like it's about talent acquisition anymore. It doesn't feel like it's about talent anymore. It just feels like we're so incredibly concerned with what the media perspective will be, that will be the one thing that will shy away from any type of talent decision making. Because based on talent, he should have been a 1st round pick. but based on everything around it and the whole sort of worrisome, like, oh, okay, what are they going to write about us? What are they going to say about us? Leads them astray and leads them to different decisions. And it's so weird. It's honestly, it is. It feels like the NFL is not ready for this. Like, college football has made leaps and bounds, and with NIL coming in and the way players are now being paid and getting sponsorship deals and marketing deals. It's weird that the NCAA has sort of overtaken the NFL when it comes to that. And I know that NIL is still up for discussion whether it benefits the integrity of the sport, but at the same time it feels like they are the ones embracing personalities, and the NFL just wants boring, basic people to do the job that it's task at hand, and don't try to do much else.
Well, and I think the hardest part about this whole thing is we talked about this on one of our baseball shows, where we're talking about the personalities out of baseball. The personality is in football, and that's exactly what's selling the game. It's what makes it it's the most profitable sport in the world, period. It's the number one grossing sport in the world, the National fucking Football League, right? Take a look at that. You take a look at the Dallas Cowboys makes more than the English Premier League does. Just the Dallas Cowboys, right? So then you talk about, well, we don't want the circus. Yes, you do. That was an excuse. That was an excuse to say no to this circus. But you're looking for another circus because you want to sell jerseys, because you do want the limelight on you, right? Especially, hopefully, on your way to winning. So then you take a look at a kid who is in two teams, Jackson State and then obviously Colorado, did an amazing job. And like you'd said, Brian, zero offensive line. He had to make plays happen. It was funny because Cam Ward was giving Shedeur a hard time, saying, well, if I threw bubble screens all day, I could do that too. I could have that high percentage rating too. It's like, shut the fuck up, Cam. You had an offensive line. Okay. It might not have been a great, but you had an offensive line. Shedeur did not have one. So I just see so many cards in this house of cards that are just tumbling from all this bullshit excuse from these different teams. I think a lot of it, and again, I'm not trying to be mean to Deion, but I think a lot of it is that they are afraid of Deion. They're afraid of him.
At Shaker Recruitment Marketing, our comprehensive services include branding, talent attraction, MarTech, and analytics, empowering you to achieve your recruitment marketing goals. We believe in doing things the right way, delivering the right message through the right activation, achieving the right conversion. For us, business is deeply personal. Our legacy is built on relationships. Together with our people, clients, and partners, we've been shaping the world of talent for over 70 years.
I agree. I think both your points are correct. I think I want to circle back to the race card again, because again, for me, as a studier of race for the last 50 years, being in a multi-ethnic environment in Oakland, California, being in a multi-ethnic environment, and again, a predominantly black city in Detroit, Michigan, my whole life, being a sensitive and aware of racial issues when I started, like I was like 8 years old, when the light went on, I saw the world through a different lens. Mm-hmm. I think race is a fascinating conversation. And I think as we talk about this, Jasper brought up the great point of Tim Tebow, right? But we often forget to bring in Colin Kaepernick. Yes. Colin, if you look at examples, 2 examples of players being excommunicated and removed and blacklisted from the NFL, those 2 guys hit it spot on. Tim Tebow, because of social media following and because his arm isn't that strong. Mm-hmm. But You could say the Baltimore Ravens won a Super Bowl with a quarterback that didn't have an arm that was that strong either.
They had a hell of a defense.
But that was like the Shedeur Sanders doesn't throw on time. That was the thing that was done with Tim Tebow, is that he didn't throw, even though they won a playoff game with them.
Yep.
He was excommunicated from the NFL, just like Colin Kaepernick. So it's fascinating to see the two situations. Tebow is because of social media following. Colin Kaepernick's situation just because he was black and because he was challenging the system and peacefully, quietly took a stinking knee. And so
he was actually advised to take a knee by a Green Beret.
Exactly right.
Who I trained in Fort Benning, Georgia, by the way. Yes.
Name drop. Name drop.
Got to bring it back to me, guys. Got to bring it back to me.
It is all about you.
But again, I agree 100%. Race is a discussion we need to have more of, right? Not just in sports, but outside of sports. But because it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it is. It's uncomfortable. We need to have those uncomfortable discussions, and we need to have them just to make ourselves better. It's not throwing mud, right? It's to be able to ensure that the humans that we work beside, left and right, that they are getting a fair shot at shit.
And that you're factoring in all the pieces into play, like we're doing in this conversation. We're throwing out a whole bunch of different threads to this that are all compatible. Race is often thrown out because it takes all the oxygen in the room when it comes up, because white folks, quite honestly, have a hard time talking about it. Black folks don't have a hard time talking about it. Latino folks don't have a hard time talking about it. Asian folks don't have a hard time talking about it. It's white folks that have a hard time talking about it. And that's what sucks up the energy in the room, or the atmosphere in the room, is because my people, we get defensive and feel like, oh no, if I admit that racism was a part of our history, then it means I didn't earn anything that I've ever done. That's not true. That's overthinking it. That's not true. And that has nothing to do with the conversation. And anyway, so I'm glad we're able to have the conversation here and really factor in all the pieces of Shedeur Sanders' story, because it's fascinating.
Now, I think one final point I do want to make, and I know we've done an extensive episode on Deion Sanders himself. So, I mean, people should very much just go back and listen to that, because we're going to probably duplicate what we've already said. But I wonder, just with Deion Sanders, like whether the way he acts, the way he talks, the way it's almost as if people just perceive that as him being arrogant and brash.
Yeah.
I just see a confident guy. Honestly, it just boils down to confidence and a faith, in something higher than him, and a sort of faith in himself. But why do we see that as a danger as society?
He doesn't cuss. He doesn't put anybody down.
Nope.
He defends his players. He promotes his players.
Yeah.
He's a powerful black man.
He's building young men.
It's almost as if we're not ready for a powerful black man of that stature.
I think you're right
that way.
And what we don't hear about at all when we talk about Deion Sanders is they were the number one team, the only team in history to have a football team in total with a grade point average over 3.0.
Oh, yeah.
I posted that on social media. People responded back to me like, "Oh, that's a lie. Did you go to Snopes? Did you find out if that's true?" That's a lie. And I had to throw a video on there. The academic advisor, a white woman was there to justify it or verify it, right? As far as visually, and I got no comments after that. They said it was untrue. But the academic, so this program, not only on the field, was garbage before he got there. And over time, he's built them into not only a team to be reckoned with on the field, but also academically. These young men are building a foundation for themselves under his stewardship. That is amazing.
Well, Deion, one of the things that I love about Deion is his discipline, not just on the field, but off the field. And what he's doing is, and this is the biggest thing, he is a mentor. Right? Not just to his sons, but to everybody on that damn team. That's why Travis Hunter followed him, right? He was able to show, lead, and show discipline, right? And then also enforce that discipline, especially when it came to grades, behavior, those types of things. He understands this is a business. You have to understand your personality, the marketing, developing yourself, but also outside of that, it's a much bigger thing. And much like you talk about, Brian, this is Fantasyland. You got to prep yourself for when you're out of Fantasyland. And those grades are going to be the foundation of how you do that.
That's right. That's right. And the athletic part is the easy part, right? That's what we enjoy as kids or as young athletes or young men. We enjoy that part, the hard part. It was a hard part for me. The academic part, that wasn't fun. Going to class at 8 o'clock in the morning wasn't fun. Studying for finals wasn't fun. Yeah. Right. But you had to do it. And I love, to your point, Chad, that Deion has forced his team, used the power and the leverage he has as the head football coach, and forced them to show up to class, be in the first row. We've all seen the videos. You got to be in the first row. You got to be on time. You got to be all these things. And here they have produced, and we don't hear anything about it, which is too bad.
Agreed.
It feels like a slap in the face of all of that.
Yeah. Well, sliding, but the beautiful part, and we'll end on this, is we have a Shedeur Sanders who we know is incredibly talented, that got knocked down to the fifth round.
He got humiliated.
That's going to put a chip on his shoulder.
I hope so. Yeah.
That you hope the Browns thought they could actually use. Who knows?
And the humiliation, Jasper, was the point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that was
the point.
Yep.
I think what's going to do is going to fuel that fire. It's going to be. He'll be fine. He just signed a contract for 4 years for $4 million. He'll be fine. He got plenty of NIL money. His money's fine.
No, I'm not even worried about his money. I just really
he's going to be fine.
It's
going to be a fun story to continue to watch.
I hope he just gets a shot somewhere, whether it's with the Browns, somewhere else. I just want that guy to show the world what he does as a starting quarterback, because he's. And
isn't it interesting? I think many of America, or many of the world, really, his following is amazing. People are tying into that. Because we all like underdogs, right? We all.
The NFL just made him an underdog.
Yes. Exactly right. And the NFL made this a bigger story than it was going to be before, and it's fascinating. Again, to you guys' point, the NFL is already about chaos and all kinds of stories and villains and good guys. Shedeur Sanders, when he goes off and takes his team to the playoffs, that's going to be fun to watch.
And we will be following, kids. So every week, come on back to Little Talent Chasing. We'll be back next week. And again, we will follow Shedeur Sanders as well as all the other amazing talent, not just on the field, but in the corporate ranks as well. It's Chad Sowash, Jasper Spanjaart, and our Brian Johnson. We appreciate you coming. Subscribe, like, and come on back. Have a good one, guys.
Appreciate you. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to, what's it called? A podcast. The Chad. The Cheese. Brilliant. They talk about recruiting. They talk about technology. But most of all, they talk about nothing. Just a lot of shout-outs of people you don't even know. And yet you're listening. It's incredible. And not one word about cheese. Not one. Cheddar. Blue. Nacho, pepper jack, Swiss. So many cheeses and not one word. So weird. Anywho, be sure to subscribe today on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That way you won't miss an episode. And while you're at it, visit www.chadcheese.com. Just don't expect to find any recipes for grilled cheese. It's so weird. We out!